Fame can bring money, fans, and attention, but it can't stop nature when it strikes back. Some celebrities died in ways that seem almost unreal, attacked and killed by the very animals they admired, worked with, or never saw coming. These are not just accidents, they're violent, disturbing, and hard to explain. In this video, we'll explore 5 real stories of well-known people who lost their lives in shocking animal attacks. Each one leaves behind questions and a chilling sense of how quickly things can turn. It was January 26, 2001 in San Francisco, California. Diane Whipple, a 33-year-old college coach and former elite athlete, had just returned home from the grocery store. She lived in a quiet apartment building in Pacific Heights with her longtime partner, Sharon Smith. Diane had spent her life dedicated to sports. She was once an All-American lacrosse player and coached at St. Mary's College in Moraga. But that afternoon, as she stepped into the hallway outside her apartment, something happened that no one could have expected. 2 dogs, Bane and Hera, were waiting on the other side. Known in the building for being aggressive, they belonged to her neighbors, attorneys Marjorie Knoller and Robert Knoll. Within minutes, Diane was fatally attacked. Diane was born in 1967 in Princeton, New Jersey, and raised in New York by her grandparents. Her athletic career was impressive. She represented the U.S. in the Women's Lacrosse World Cup twice and came close to qualifying for the 1996 Olympics. After her athletic career, she moved to San Francisco and focused on coaching. Knoller and Knoll, the couple who owned the dogs, had a strange connection to a high-ranking prison gang member named Paul "Corn-Fed" Schneider. Schneider, serving 3 life sentences, was part of a white supremacist gang. Knoller and Knoll became close to him, so close that they legally adopted him just days before the attack. Through Schneider, they came to care for 2 large Presa Canario dogs, originally intended for use in an illegal dogfighting operation. The dogs were raised on a farm in Ohio, where they were poorly treated and kept chained. Eventually, Knoller and Knoll took them into their apartment. By 2001, Bane weighed around 140 pounds, and Hera weighed nearly 100. They had already shown signs of aggression. Several residents had complained. A dog walker warned Knoll to muzzle them, but Knoll responded with insults. Another person said Hera had bitten him, and Knoll never apologized. Despite repeated warnings, the couple refused to take action. On the day of the incident, Knoller was walking the dogs in the hallway when she ran into Diane. Reports say Bane broke free and attacked Diane. Whether Hera joined is still unclear. Diane suffered 77 bites all over her body, except her scalp and the soles of her feet. Her throat was seriously damaged. Neighbors heard the screams and called emergency services. She was rushed to San Francisco General Hospital but died from severe blood loss and injuries. Bane was put down immediately. Hera was held and later euthanized about a year after. Public reaction was strong. These weren't stray dogs. They were known to be dangerous, and their owners had been warned. In March 2001, Knoller and Knoll were both charged. Knoller with second-degree felony charges related to the death and involuntary manslaughter, and Knoll with involuntary manslaughter. They were also charged with keeping a dangerous animal. The trial moved to Los Angeles due to media coverage. Knoller claimed she tried to stop the attack, but witnesses said the couple had ignored previous complaints. After the attack, Knoll even wrote a letter suggesting Diane might have triggered the dogs by wearing a scent, a statement many found offensive. In 2002, both were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Knoller was also convicted of second-degree charges based on implied malice, meaning she acted knowing someone could be seriously harmed. The judge later reduced the charge, but it was reinstated after several appeals. In 2008, Knoller was sentenced to 15 years to life. She remains in prison and was denied parole in 2019. Her next hearing is scheduled for 2026. Knoll was sentenced to 4 years and was paroled in 2003. He lived quietly after that and passed away in 2018 from heart failure on his 77th birthday. Sharon Smith filed a civil suit and won $1.5 million in damages. She donated part of it to St. Mary's lacrosse team. This case led to a new legal ground. A person could now be held responsible for a fatal animal attack if they knowingly ignored the danger. Diane Whipple's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was the result of warnings that were ignored, and it happened just steps from her own front door. It was October 27, 2009 in Nova Scotia, Canada. Taylor Mitchell, a 19-year-old folk singer from Toronto, was traveling alone through eastern Canada. She had just released her debut album, For Your Consideration, which had received positive reviews. That summer, she performed at several events, including the Winnipeg Folk Festival. With a few days off before her next concert in Sydney, Nova Scotia, she decided to go for a hike. Taylor chose the Skyline Trail in Cape Breton Highlands National Park. The weather was clear and the trail was one of the most popular in the park. Taylor, who had a deep love for nature and supported wildlife protection, was wearing proper hiking clothes and didn't bring any food. She felt comfortable being outdoors alone. Around 2:45 p.m., an American couple saw Taylor near the start of the trail. She was walking alone and looked confident. Not long after, she turned back toward the access road leading to the parking lot. At some point, a coyote may have begun to follow her. By 3:02 p.m., another American couple, Mike and Gail, were walking on the same access road. They spotted two coyotes heading toward them. The animals didn't seem scared. One stared directly at them. Mike took a photo before they kept walking. Moments later, they heard strange sounds. It was unclear whether it was howling or a young woman crying out. They used a nearby emergency phone to report what they heard. At the same time, 4 young hikers had just reached the parking area. After learning about the sounds, they went to investigate. Along the trail, they found Taylor's items, her keys, a small knife, and other belongings, scattered along the access road. These led them further into the woods. Near a clearing by the trailhead, they saw blood-stained and torn clothing. Blood was also found on the bathroom door nearby. Deeper into the trail, they found Taylor lying in the forest with a coyote standing over her. 3 of the hikers charged at the animal, forcing it to back off, though it stayed close and continued growling. Taylor was still awake and tried to talk, but she had deep injuries across her body, mainly on her legs and head. The knife found earlier may have been used in self-defense. A Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer arrived and fired at the coyote with pellets. Paramedics rushed Taylor to Sacred Heart Community Health Center in Cheticamp. Because of how serious her condition was, she was flown to Queen Elizabeth II Health Sciences Center in Halifax. Despite efforts to save her, she passed away later that evening from severe blood loss. This was the first confirmed case in Canada, and only the second in North America, where a person lost their life due to a coyote attack. Normally, coyotes avoid people, so many were left asking why this happened. Investigators looked into several possibilities, such as whether the animals had been fed by people, were unwell, or were defending something. None of these could be confirmed. Mike's photo helped identify the coyotes. 5 were later captured and put down. Forensics showed that at least 3 of them had Taylor's blood on them. One male coyote weighing 42 pounds matched the one in the photo and still had pellets from the officer's shot. In 2022, researchers found these coyotes had learned to hunt bigger animals like moose due to a lack of smaller prey. Over time, they had grown less fearful of people and more aggressive. They may have seen Taylor hiking alone as something to chase. The trail was closed after the event. An aggressive female coyote was later found and killed. More were trapped, but experts warned that removing too many could lead to bolder animals taking over. Taylor's mother, Emily Mitchell, said her daughter wouldn't have wanted the animals harmed. Taylor had always believed that walking in nature came with risks. After the attack, more people reported bold behavior from coyotes, including a case where a teenager was bitten. In 2013, the documentary Bad Coyote explored this shift in animal behavior and Taylor's death. She had been recently nominated for the Canadian Folk Music Award as Young Performer of the Year. Her last performance was in Lucasville, with another scheduled in Sydney 2 days later. She was buried in Owen Sound, Ontario. Her family later started the Taylor Mitchell Legacy Trust, which supports safe wildlife education and community arts. Today, the Skyline Trail remains open, but those who walk it still remember what happened to Taylor. It was August 9, 2001 in Tsavo East National Park, Kenya. Jackie Boxberger, a 52-year-old retired Olympic runner from France, was on vacation with his wife and daughter. He had once been one of France's most well-known long-distance runners. This trip to Africa was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, but that day turned out to be the last day of his life, and the way it happened would shock both the public and the athletic world. Jackie was born on April 16, 1949, in a small town in northeastern France called Châtel-sur-Moselle. From an early age, he stood out in running. At just 19 years old, he broke the junior world record in the 1,500-meter race at Stade Charletti in Paris. That same year, he made it to the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City, where he placed 6th in the 1,500-meter final. For someone so young, this was a major achievement. Jackie competed in 4 Olympic Games from 1968 to 1984, finishing 42nd in the marathon at his final appearance in Los Angeles. He won the Paris Marathon twice, claimed victory at the 1987 Marrakesh Marathon, and earned national titles across multiple distances. In 1972, he also won gold in the 1500 meters at the European Indoor Championships. But Jackie's journey wasn't without setbacks. While serving in the military with the Joinville Battalion, a group made up of elite athletes, he suffered a knee injury. This limited his ability to train and compete at the highest level. Some believed that if not for that injury, he could have reached the same level as Michel Jayzee, one of France's top runners at the time. Even so, Jackie remained a respected name in athletics. By 2001, he had retired from professional sports. Still, his reputation remained strong, especially in France. His daughter, Ophélie Claude Boxberger, had also taken up middle-distance running, showing that Jackie's love for the sport had been passed on. That August, Jackie and his family traveled to Kenya. They were staying near Tsavo East National Park, a place known for its wildlife and large elephant population. Like many visitors, Jackie had a passion for photography and brought his camera along to capture the beauty of the area. On August 9th, while on safari with his wife and daughter, Jackie saw an elephant nearby and wanted to get a closer shot. He stepped away from the vehicle to film the animal better. But what happened next was sudden. The elephant became defensive. It used its trunk to lift Jackie into the air and threw him against a tree. He fell to the ground, and moments later, the elephant charged again. Tragically, Jackie did not survive the injuries. His wife and daughter saw everything but couldn't stop it. Park rangers arrived shortly after, but it was already too late. News of Jackie's death quickly spread through France and beyond. Many were shocked that a man who had spent decades pushing his body to the limit on Olympic tracks and marathon courses had lost his life during a quiet vacation. The French athletic community paid tribute to him. Fellow athletes described him as focused, humble, and committed to his sport. His sudden death left many heartbroken. Jackie Boxberger was remembered not only for his athletic success, but also as a father and husband. His daughter, Ophélie, continued running, keeping her father's legacy alive in every race she joined. He died at 52 years old, far from the track, in a place meant for rest. What happened to him was unexpected, sudden, and left a deep impact on everyone who knew him. It was October 5th, 2003, in Alaska's Katmai National Park. 46-year-old Timothy Treadwell, a filmmaker and environmental advocate, was camping deep in the wilderness with his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard. For 13 summers, Timothy had returned to this remote area, believing he had formed a bond with the grizzly bears that lived there. But on this day, everything went wrong. Timothy, known as the Grizzly Man, gained fame for living among wild bears and filming them up close. While many admired his passion, others criticized his risky behavior. He broke park rules, avoided using bear spray, and treated bears like companions. He usually camped in an open area called the Grizzly Sanctuary, but on his final trip, he stayed in the denser and more dangerous Grizzly Maze. Originally from Long Island, Timothy had been a skilled diver with a college scholarship, but after personal struggles and a failed acting opportunity, he turned to wildlife. A close encounter with a bear inspired him to change his name to Treadwell and dedicate his life to their protection. Each summer he returned to Katmai, getting extremely close to the bears. He named them, spoke to them, and acted as if they accepted him as one of their own. Park officials disagreed with Timothy's methods and cited him for unsafe practices like improper food storage and overstaying in restricted areas. Despite rules meant to prevent bears from becoming too used to humans, he ignored warnings and refused to use fences or bear spray, saying he felt guilty the one time he did. Despite everything, he kept coming back. He co-authored a book, founded a nonprofit with colleague Jewel Palavac, and drew media attention. But seasoned bear researchers like Charlie Russell said Timothy was putting himself and others at risk. In September 2003, Timothy and Amy returned to Katmai. Amy, a physician assistant from Buffalo, New York, had joined him on past trips, though some said she felt nervous around the animals. Her last journal entries showed that she wanted to leave. They were supposed to fly out on September 26th, but a travel issue led Timothy to extend the trip. He wanted more time to find a specific bear he favored. By then, many familiar bears had left. In their place were new, unfamiliar ones, including a large, aggressive bear later known as Bear 141. Timothy even said on camera that this bear made him uncomfortable. On October 5th, he made a satellite phone call but didn't mention anything unusual. The next day, their pilot, Willie Fulton, arrived to pick them up but noticed something was off. A large bear was near the silent camp. He left quickly and contacted the authorities. Rangers found Timothy's remains not far from the tent. His wristwatch was still running on his detached arm. Amy's body had been partially buried, a behavior bears sometimes show when storing food. Bear 141, acting threatening, was nearby and had to be put down. A second bear was also removed after charging at responders. Human remains were found inside Bear 141. A video camera was also recovered, capturing 6 minutes of audio. The lens cap was on, so only sound was recorded. Timothy is heard calling out. Amy yells back, telling him to play dead. Later, the bear returns and Amy's screams continue before everything goes quiet. The recording has never been released. Filmmaker Werner Herzog heard it while making Grizzly Man and advised it should never be made public. This was the first time anyone lost their life to a bear in Katmai's history. The tragedy raised serious questions. Were Timothy's actions courageous or careless? For 13 summers, Timothy believed he could live safely among wild bears, but in the end, that belief led to a tragic end for both him and Amy. It was September 4th, 2006, off the coast of Queensland, Australia. Steve Irwin, the 44-year-old wildlife expert known around the world as the crocodile hunter, was filming at the Great Barrier Reef. The project was for a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest. But that day, something unexpected happened, and within just a few hours, Steve, who had spent his life working with animals, was gone. Steve grew up around reptiles. His parents owned a small reptile park, which later became Australia Zoo. By age 6, he had already caught his first venomous snake. By 9, under his father's guidance, he was handling crocodiles. He wasn't just brave. Steve had a strong respect for animals. He believed in understanding them, not fearing them. That attitude was clear in his TV series, The Crocodile Hunter, which became a huge hit in the 1990s. Viewers all over the world watched as Steve handled dangerous animals like crocodiles and snakes, always excited and always shouting his famous line, "Crikey." But while many people loved his hands-on style, others in the wildlife field warned that it could be risky. Sadly, those warnings would come true. In early September 2006, Steve and his crew were filming Ocean's Deadliest, but strong winds and rough seas forced them to stop. While waiting for the weather to clear, Steve, cameraman Justin Lyons, and director John Stainton decided to shoot a quick segment for Steve's daughter Bindy's children's show, Bindy the Jungle Girl. They planned to film stingrays in shallow water, an animal Steve had worked with many times before. Stingrays are usually calm and rarely seen as dangerous. The crew believed the shoot would be safe. They traveled to Bat Reef near Port Douglas. In chest-high water, Steve swam with his snorkel gear next to Justin, who was filming. Steve had one rule: always keep the camera rolling. In front of them was a large stingray around 2 meters wide. It was likely a short-tailed or Australian bull ray. The plan was to film it swimming away as Steve passed behind it. But instead of swimming off, the stingray suddenly reacted. Experts believe it may have seen Steve's shadow and confused it for a predator like a tiger shark. The stingray whipped its tail upward and struck. Its barb pierced through Steve's chest and reached his heart. The injury was extremely serious. Justin later said it felt like the barb went in like a hot knife through butter. Steve thought it had hit his lung, but he quickly started losing a lot of blood. The crew rushed him back onto the boat and began CPR while speeding toward Low Island, where medical help was waiting. Justin tried to keep him awake, reminding him of his kids. Steve managed to say just 2 words: "I'm dying." Those were the last words he spoke. Steve passed away before they could reach help. The injury had caused too much damage to his heart. Everything had been recorded as Steve had requested. The footage was handed over to the police but was never made public. According to his wife, Terry, and director Stainton, nearly all copies were destroyed. Only one remains in police custody. Terry never watched it. She said she didn't need to. Steve hadn't planned to film that day. The shoot had been added at the last minute, meant to fill time. It should have been a safe task. When the news broke, people around the world were in disbelief. In Australia, flags were lowered. In the United States, Animal Planet aired non-stop tributes. A public memorial was held on September 20th at Australia Zoo and was watched by over 300 million people. Messages came in from people like Prime Minister John Howard, actor Russell Crowe, and Bindy. Privately, Steve was buried on September 9th at the zoo. His resting place remains private. In the days after, at least 10 stingrays were found on Queensland beaches with their tails cut off. Some believed fans were acting out in anger, but Steve's family strongly spoke out against this. Bindi later said she still cared for stingrays. Experts explained that stingrays are not aggressive, and what happened to Steve was extremely rare. 18 years later, Steve's final moments remain unseen by the public, but he passed doing what he loved, working with wildlife and helping others understand it.